Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Welcome to this third class on the Introduction to Vedanta. I will quickly recap on what we have covered in the previous two classes. We began by understanding our rich scriptures, primarily the Vedas, and the Vedas have been in condensed form as sutras, in an elaboration as Smriti, story form as the Puranas and the Itihasas, and commentaries on them which make it understandable through the Bhashyams. The scriptures also say that there are four important goals in life, and that is called Dharmartha, Kama, and Moksha Purushartha. In order to attain these Purushartha, the scriptures recommend that we go through certain Varna and Ashrama Dharma. Based on this, we have the Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and the Sannyasa, so that we will be able to attain to our Purushartha. The next class, what was last week, we studied certain spiritual exercises or sadhanas. We have to work all the time. How do I convert my work to worship so that I become eligible for spiritual knowledge? In addition, all these techniques need to refine our mind. So we learn certain techniques, mental techniques called upasanas, which involve various meditations, various forms of japas, pranayamas, to be done regularly so that our mind is more receptive for spiritual knowledge. Once the mind is ready, then it becomes easy for a teacher to give you instructions of spiritual wisdom based on the Gita and the Upanishads, and that is called Jnana Yoga. If a person is able to combine all these three, karma, upasana, and jnana, and that fulfills out in bhakti. Our teacher, Swami Param, recommends that we do Pancha Maha Yajna, beginning with Deva Yajna, worship to God, Brahma Yajna, spiritual study, service to fellow human beings as Manusha Yajna, Bhuta Yajna, and for our elders in the form of Pitra Yajna. In addition, we studied two mantras in the first class. The Ganesha mantra, Vakratunda Mahakaya, and also the symbolism of Ganesha and the importance of invoking Ganesha in all our activities. The beautiful mantra, Yakundena Tusharahara, invoking Goddess Saraswati whenever we come in for spiritual knowledge. Certain Guru mantras from the Guru Gita, particularly the Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. We went into the Shanti Patas, one particular mantra which is chanted before spiritual studies, Om Sahana Bhavatu, and the two powerful mantras, the Gayatri mantra and the Mrityunjaya mantra. If we have been able to go through our study material, we already have a very rich information which is of very practical day-to-day use in our spiritual sadhana. What are we in for today? Class 3 is about qualifications required. If you want to go to a medical school, if you want to go to an engineering school, if you want to pursue certain higher studies, there are always certain prerequisites before. What are these prerequisites? Our teacher calls them 4Ds. Today, let it be only terms, but we will have a lot of us seniors, students of Swami Param, who will explain each of these and will be able to explain the deeper meaning of each of these terms. What is viveka or discrimination, vairagya or dispassion, mumukshutvam, which is the key. Why are we all together? Because we have a keen desire to know something about the spiritual wisdom which can give me freedom. Right now, we do not know what it is, but we are committed to find something higher, and that is that drive in us called moksha ichcha or mumukshutvam. In any field of endeavor, it requires a lot of discipline. And that discipline in this field is called Shama Adi Shakta Sampatti. We will be also studying three important mantras. These are very familiar mantras. One is the mantra Asato Ma Sadgamaya. The second is the mantra Om Purnamada Purnamidam. And the third mantra recommended before any meal is called Annapurne Sadapurne. This is the vision of what we are going to go in for today. We will begin by understanding this Vedantic mantra, Asato Ma Sadgamaya. To explain this will be Dr. Sachin, who is a plastic surgeon working with us in Narayana Hridayalaya. In addition to being a skilled plastic surgeon, he is committed to share this understanding that he has received with so many of you. He's been instrumental in doing all the groundwork that we are all together. So, Dr. Sachin, you may begin.
Hari Om. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om, friends. This simple and most lucid mantra is from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It's the easiest mantra to chant, but has a very profound and practical meaning in our life. The word-by-word translation is as follows. Asatoma Sadgamaya, which means lead me from untruth to the truth. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya means lead me from darkness to light. And Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya, which means may I get transformed from a mere mortal being to a liberated, immortal Atma, which shall be the ultimate goal of our all sadhakas. Through our rich culture and history, we know this following few spiritual leaders like Guru Gobind Singh Sahab from Punjab, Santa Naneshwar and Santa Eknath Maharaj from Maharashtra, Sri Narayana Guru from Kerala, and Swami Kanakadasa from our very own land here, Karnataka. They all have one thing in common, and they are all immortal. They were Jivan Muktas where they were alive. They all seek the ultimate truth and brought reforms in the life of common people around them. They also had written simple teachings, which has been holy books to be considered by the future generation and already has been considered by the past generation alike. So, if we dive a bit deeper in their understandings and want to understand what really means, this mantra helps us a lot. Firstly, what do we mean by Sat? Here, Sat is nothing but truth, the ultimate truth, and it is the only truth any sadhaka should know. It represents the Sat part of Brahman. Actually, the Asat part is actually the Maya, and we are all surrounded by it from all angles and in all wakes of our life. That what our five senses, we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, is nothing but Maya. All that which keeps this Jiva, the body-mind complex, in a golden shackle of samsara, right from the very birth itself and up to the death. This asat, the samsara, which has been a great hurdle to the understanding of the real I in me, the higher I. So how do one understand the Sat part of Brahman? It gives in the second line, that's the Jyotirgamaya, which says about the consciousness or Chit part of Brahman. Now one should understand that as light exists in and through all the beings, so does the consciousness, which is all pervasive and is present in and through all objects, innate or inanimate. So without the Chit, the Sat doesn't exist. So without the knowledge of higher selves, we would be always in the darkness or andhakara. The ignorant I or the lower I would always be in the lower reality of world, and that is represented by the tamasic nature of life. So let me be taken from darkness, that is tamasoma jyotirgamaya, to the lightness or understanding of our scriptural knowledge through an able guru. And finally, achieving freedom or liberation. So once the two aspects, that is the Sat and Chit part of Brahman, is understood well, then one thing is for sure, we are free from the fear of death, the mrityu, which is inevitable for all beings, as we all would agree. It's just the body-mind complex which has to be died one day. The Shariratrayam, which would be freed from all the bondages and would not require to take rebirth in any form in the future, in which consists not only the Stula Sharira which we know, but the Sukshma and Karana Sharira also will get liberated with the clear understanding of Sateva Chit and Chiteva Sat. It will merge with the Ananta part of Brahman and get liberated forever. So this mantra clearly explains the Sat Chit Ananda part of Brahman. Now, the following small example of Rasagulla would make it more clear. For example, if this lady doesn't have the understanding of how the Rasagulla tastes, and she has the first time she sees the Rasagulla, which is the Sat part of the Brahman, and then she wants to taste it. So the Sat part will meet the Chit part, that is the taste. And what will happen? You can see as soon as the Chit part and Sat part meets, the entire bliss happens. And this is what is the mantra about. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sachin, for a very nice explanation. From our school days, we know this mantra, Asato Ma Sadgamaya. The general meaning is from that which is unreal, lead me to the real. But when you come to Vedanta, you have two important terms. What is Asat and Sat? Here it does not have that just meaning from unreal to real. It means that which is seeming to be existent, which is Asat, to that which is really existent. This whole understanding is spiritual wisdom. And when we are able to shift from which seems to exist to that which really exists, that is when you overcome death and you attain to Purnatvam, or a state of liberation. We will go to the next mantra. This is also a very familiar mantra. All of us know this mantra. We have known this from childhood again, Om Purnamada Purnamidam, and it sounds very nice. But this particular mantra is very difficult to understand. It is difficult to explain. Our teacher says you need a knowledge of about 10 Upanishads to be able to understand. I will request Dr. Anupama to explain this mantra. Be a little patient, even if you're not able to understand the full import. We will try to make an attempt to understand. Dr. Anupama, please go ahead.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevava Shishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is the Shanti Pata of Shukla Yajurveda. We could split this into 4 quarters to simplify the explanation. The first quarter, Purnam Adaha Purnam Idam. The word meaning, Purnam means infinite or Ananta. Adaha means that, Tat, the Paramatma, or the existence principle, Sat. Idam means this, Tvam, the Jivatma, or the consciousness principle, Chitta. The literal meaning is that Paramatma is infinite, this Jivatma is infinite. Now, we have not seen Paramatma, but we certainly know that the Jivatma is very, very finite. In Vedanta, all attributes associated with the Atma are considered to be non-substantial or of a lesser order of reality called Mithya. So, by negating the attributes Parama and Jiva, we conclude that Tat Atma is the same as Tvam Atma, both being infinite or Ananta. This is the meaning of Tat Tvam Asi, or Sat Chit Ananta. The second quarter, Purnat Purnam Udachyate. Purnat means from that Paramatma. Purnam means the Jivatma. Udachyate means is born. The microcosmic Jivatma is born out of the macrocosmic Paramatma. Here, the relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma is explained by using Karya-Karana Sambandha, or cause-effect relationship. Just as a wave originates from the ocean, the Jivatma is here comparable to the wave, the microcosm, or the Vyashti, whereas the Paramatma is comparable to the ocean, the macrocosm, the Samashti. Both wave and ocean are essentially just water. When a tide of water identifies itself with a wave, it assumes an identity with its name and form and suffers all limitations. Similarly, when a person, the Jivatma, identifies himself with the ego, his infinite potential, the Ananta state, transforms into the limited body-mind complex. The third quarter, Purnasya Purnam Adaya. Purnasya means from the Jivatma or Paramatma, both having two aspects, the Shariri, the Atma, and the Shariram, the Anatma or the Mithya component. Purnam here refers to Shariri, the Atma aspect. Adaya means if negated or removed. That is, if from either Jivatma or Paramatma, the Atma aspect is removed, what would happen? The fourth quarter explains, Purnam evava shishyate. The Shariram, the Anatma or the Mithya component, ceases to exist without the support of the Shariri or the Atma. To conclude, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. The message conveyed here is that we should reorient our attention from the effect, the Anatma or Jagat, to the cause, the Atma, the Ishvara. If we could understand that there is no effect separate from the cause, if we could intellectually negate the letter L from the world and realize that only a word remains, if we could transform or transcend form and realize that our essential nature is Sat, Chit, Ananta, the limitless existence consciousness principle, we could get liberated or attain moksha. This is the essence of Vedanta. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama, for a nice explanation of this very profound mantra. You've been listening to Dr. Anupama, who is a very, very busy doctor. By now, we have already met three doctors, Dr. Ahalya, Dr. Sachin, and Dr. Anupama, and you will meet more of them. All of them have never left their homes to any Gurukula, to any certain guru. We have not been able to learn directly from a guru, but through the audios of Swami Paramarthananda sitting in our own homes. If you could understand the import and be able to explain it to others, this is what we are looking for. And this is certainly possible. And I've now come to the main topic for today. The topic today is, what are the qualifications required if you have to make a proper spiritual understanding? The qualifications are nicely brought out in an Upanishad called the Kathopanishad. The Kathopanishad is a dialogue between two people, Nachiketa, a young boy, and the teacher for Vedanta here is none other than the god of death, Yamadharmaraja. There is a certain circumstances when the boy gets an opportunity to meet with the god of death. And when he gets such a rare opportunity, he is not frightened. He dares to ask him one important question. He says, what happens to a person after death? Now, whenever you get an opportunity to meet an extraordinary person, you cannot go empty-handed. So he was wanting to give him something, but he was certain that whether this boy was eligible for this answer. So he dissuades him and gives him all sorts of attractions. He said, I will give you the best thing in the world. You can be the king of the world. I will give you all the riches, good health. And this is an Upanishad where a tremendous amount of testing of the student has happened. So the student was tempted to everything worldly. Now, if you have a deep desire to acquire something, that deep desire is called mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam means other than that, I want nothing else. And when Yamadharmaraja was convinced that this boy wanted nothing else, he dared to give him the great Upanishadic wisdom. But he wanted to see if he had all the mental capabilities. And what are the mental capabilities? The first, these are called the 4 Ds. The first D is called Viveka or discrimination. Discrimination means the ability to decide where I'm going to invest my life. In the whole world of investment, we will see that I will put my money in certain companies which are reliable. So too, as you come into the world of spirituality, you will see what is that which is permanent. If you look around, everything is impermanent, everything is changing. But there is one thing that never changes. In Vedanta, that which never changes is called Sat or Brahman, which we will understand in due course. If you understand that I'm going to invest on Sat completely, then everything that is Asat, I will not have any interest on. That is called dispassion or vairagya. Anything worldly, all the riches of the world and all the relationship do not mean so much to me as my keenness in understanding what is Purnatvam, what is Mokshutvam. The teachers also say, like in any discipline, like in any study, do you have the various discipline involved? And this is called Shama Adi Shakta Sampatti. Shama means mastery of the mind, full control on the mind. So what are the 6 disciplines that we need to have to achieve something? First is full control of the mind. The mind should be my tool that I can work on. Second is Dhamma. That means I am the master of my sense organs. The third is Uparama. Uparama means if the real treasure is within me, all the attractions outside don't attract me. I learn to turn inwards to look into the real treasure within me. Each of this will be explained in detail, but I'm just giving you an overview. There is one word called Titiksha. Titiksha means being mentally tough. In the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives a nice verse which goes like this. Matra sparshasu kaunteya sita ushna sukha adaya agama pahino nityaha tam titikshaso bharata. O Bharata, O Arjuna, from the time you wake up, your sense organs will meet sense objects. Sita ushna, cold heat, sukha dukkha, happiness and unhappiness. Come and go, they come and go. Anityaha, they are, nothing is permanent. But you should have that endurance, you should have that mental fitness. Krishna emphasizes the world is going to be whatever it is, but you should be mentally strong to be able to handle these things in the world. Then there is an important qualification called trust. I know what my teacher is saying is true. I have complete faith in my teacher. But this is not a blind faith. I have written it as trust pending verification. The teacher is open to verification. Our scriptures, our teaching follows 3 things. It is called Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhuti. Yukti means, does it come in accordance with your own experience? Yukti means logic, Anubhuti means experience, Shruti means the scriptural knowledge. That is how we have Shraddha. And finally, Samadhana. Samadhana means if there is an work to be done, can I be fully focused on it until that work is over? So these are the important qualifications. And I've just given an example of Mount Kailash. What you're seeing is Mount Kailash. You're not able to see. Now, sometimes we see these images by other people. And the moment you see Mount Kailash, you make up your mind, I am going to go there. I want to go there somehow. But I do not know what are my qualifications required, what is the fitness required. And I don't really know more details. But if the desire is very strong, I'm going to put it across to my family and people at work. There will be opposition at every level. But the moment they see that you are very determined, then they will come to support you. And then you find out systematically what are all the things that are required. Exactly, that is what we are going through. Now, to explain what is Viveka, to explain what is the first qualification, we have Dr. Gautam Divakar. Dr. Gautam Divakar is a psychiatrist at Narayan Hridayalaya and also deep into the study of Vedanta. You have Dr. Gautam, can you go ahead explaining Viveka to us?
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. All of our goal is moksha, which is liberation from ignorance for our lasting security and happiness. One who reaches this goal is called as Jivan Muktaha. So the degree we are in pursuit is JM degree, Jivan Mukta degree. And we are aiming for the convocation to happen in this life, in this Janma itself. JM is like an advanced postgraduate degree. Study of any advanced course or any advanced science presupposes appropriate qualifications. Like how in order to get into a PG course, one has to be a graduate. Vedanta says JM is an advanced spiritual science and prescribes 4-fold prerequisite qualifications, as Sir already has mentioned, called Sadhana Chatushtaya. First and the most fundamental of this 4-fold qualification is Viveka. Let's look at the word meaning itself. Viveka, in that word, Vik is the root word. From that comes Vaivekti. Vaivekti means to separate, to discern, or to discriminate. Viveka means discrimination. Normally, the word discrimination is used in a negative sense. That is discrimination against a race, discrimination against a color, age, gender, where it means partiality or favoritism. But in Vedanta, discrimination means right judgment or right understanding. So in order to discriminate, we need two things. Tattva Bodha says that we need to be having the discriminatory ability to discriminate between Nitya and Anitya Vastu. So what is Nitya Vastu? That which is eternal and permanent. And what is Anitya Vastu? That which is ephemeral or impermanent. Nitya Anitya Viveka, Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka is the capacity to discriminate the permanent from the impermanent. Now the next question is, what is Nitya Vastu, what is Anitya Vastu, and how do we discriminate between both of them? Let's look at the Anitya Vastu first. Let's look at the meaning itself. We said it is impermanent. So whatever is impermanent has an expiry date. Every object and living things that is subjected to the birth is consequently subjected to the death also. We all know that all the living things, including ourselves, our families, friends, relationships, animals, plants, even invisible microorganisms all have an expiry date. Now, what about non-living things such as plastic, metal, stone, water, buildings, houses? All are impermanent. Sometimes we think whatever which outlives us are permanent, but we know that the word permanent is used relatively, like permanent marker, permanent address, permanent cure, permanent love, etc. If we look at the whole universe, we discover that the universe exists within the field of the time and the space. Everything in the universe, including our body-mind complex, is subject to the onslaught of the time and therefore is anitya. Therefore, it is impermanent. Kala kridati gacchatyayuhu. In the play of the time, impermanent world perishes. Now, if we have covered the entire universe under the Anitya Vastu, what is permanent then? What is the Nitya Vastu? Vedanta and Tattva Bodha says, Nitya Vastvekam Brahma Tad Vyatiriktam Anityam. Brahman alone is permanent, everything else is impermanent. This is the quantum jump for any student of Vedanta. Some of you are hearing to this term Brahman for the very first time today. Brahman is not the Lord Brahma, who is the creator, with the, who has the four-headed and who is the creator. Whole of the Vedanta is actually study of Brahman, and you will be hearing about this again and again. Brahman is beyond time and space and is changeless in all three times, that is past, present, and the future. And therefore, Brahman is eternal and Nitya. Now, how to discern this Nitya Brahman from the Anitya Prapancha? Brahman is all pervading, which means everything in the universe, including us, is pervaded by the Brahman. Therefore, the entire universe is a mixture of Anitya Vastu and the Nitya Brahman. A Viveki, a discriminating person, understands that there is always an unseen permanent Nitya Brahman in the impermanent Anitya Prapancha. With this discrimination, he depends only on the Nitya Vastu, which is Brahman, for the lasting security and happiness. But he also uses the Anitya Prapancha for his Vyavahara, for his service, for enjoyment, after knowing its limitations. So wherever there is a strong conviction of this Viveka, eternal bliss, Ananda, is guaranteed, and we all can be Vivekanandas. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Divakar, for a very nice explanation on a difficult term called Viveka. Viveka means, where do I focus my attention on? Do I focus all my investment on? Do I focus all my investment on an invisible God? At the same time, when I have the real things around me, where do I focus my attention on? We have to understand that we have a level of trust to our teachers and whatever scriptures say, that the world is very good for education, the world is very good for entertainment, the world is very good for service. But if you have to invest on long-term peace, security, and happiness, You have to shift from the world to God, which in Vedantic terminology is called Brahman, as was just described. Now, the next topic is Mumukshutvam. Shiv Kumar.
Gurubhyo Namaha. Dr. Gautam Divakar has explained the Viveka between Nitya and Anitya Vastu. In this presentation, you will hear the word desire, which is used for Nitya as well as Anitya. Please keep that in mind while looking at the topic. The third qualification is Mumukshutvam, or desire. Reciting the shloka, Mumukshutvam kim moksho me bhuyat iti ichha, means, what is Mumukshutvam? Let me attain liberation. From the previous topics, we have understood that every human, driven by their own svabhava, intense nature, vasanas, and because of their intense raga dvesha, that is desire for obtaining finite goals of dharma, artha, kama purusharthas, caught in the web of samsara, experience strong negative feelings such as fear, frustration, anger, unhappiness, etc. This grip of avidya is so strong, people are enslaved in the web of Maya. Yet, there are many persons who are ignorantly or blissfully happy to be in this Vyavaharika Jivana or Samsara. Here I am reminded of a quote by a great monk who once said, "A happy slave," I repeat, "a happy slave is the greatest enemy of freedom." But some, from a feeling of incompleteness, helplessness, and realizing the error of seeking permanent happiness from the impermanent world, develop a strong positive desire to be free from this samsara permanently, to be free from this avidya and bondage. Such a desire, an intense desire to be liberated, to get out of the sphere of pain and pleasure, to be free from this samsara, is mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam is the strong desire for moksha. Mumukshutvam can be classified broadly into 4 categories: Ati Manda, Manda, Madhyama, and Thivra. Ati Manda, very dull. Such persons say, if I get liberated, it's fine, or else I will get liberated next time or in next lifetime. The Manda, or dull, say, I will seek liberation after retirement or after I complete all my worldly responsibilities. The Madhyama, the mediocre, say, I must get liberated as soon as possible. The sooner, the better. Only Thivra, only a strong mumukshu, declares, I want Jivan Mukti here and now. The intensity of a Thivra mumukshu desire is compared to that of a man gasping for air while drowning. A person with such strong desire, or mumukshutvam, reaches the goal. A Thivra mumukshu will also attain all other qualifications with ease. I summarize the whole topic. The burning desire for freedom or moksha in a person is called mumukshutvam, and such a person is called a mumukshu. For a Thivra mumukshu, the desire for liberation is his predominantly focused desire in life. The desire for moksha cannot be created, but based on the frame of a person's mind, it emanates on its own. With maturity, we realize attaining moksha is our final goal of life. Unlike other worldly desires, the desire for freedom focuses the mind on the self, and when we have this burning desire, Thivra mumukshutvam, we will do everything possible to get qualified and gain self-knowledge. Of all the qualifications, Vairagya and Mumukshutvam are most important. With these two qualifications, one can attain other qualifications easily. Friends, in the earlier sessions, our Dr. Timmappa Hegadeji explained the three things that are said to be extremely rare and are possible only with the grace of Brahman, which are Manushyattvam, to be born as a human being, to have an intense desire for Gnanam, Mumukshutvam, and lastly, to be under the blessings of a guru or teacher. The very fact that we are all here studying Vedanta means that we are the fortunate few who have all the three blessings. Let me alert you, some of us may feel that we have understood after listening to a scriptural talk. But later, if we feel it is difficult to practice, please just remember this only means that we require to intensify our qualifications. Let us thank the Lord, focus and intensify our Mumukshutvam for Jivan Mukti. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shiv, for a very nice explanation on this very important qualification called Mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam means as a very keen desire. I want it and nothing else. When that desire is very keen, everything else will fall in place. Shiv Kumar is a successful businessman. By chance was exposed to the spiritual inputs and has been qualities in organizing yatras for all of us, including a very successful yatra to Kailash and Manasarovar. The next important topic will be Vairagya. Once a person has a very clear understanding what you want in life, once Viveka is very clear, Vairagya follows. Venkatesh Prasad is a former banker, but now into social service, and a multifaceted person who contributes and an asset to any organization that he is a part of. Venkatesh, please explain to us the next qualification called Vairagya.
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We are continuing to study Sadhana Chatushtaya. Brahma Vidya cannot be understood or realized through mere intellectual study, reasoning, discussion, or argument. A seeker must therefore equip himself with four basic prerequisites called Sadhana Chatushtaya, as explained by Dr. Hegde sir. The two of them, The two of them, Viveka and Mumukshutvam, has been beautifully explained by Dr. Divakar and Shiv Kumar. Now, let us focus on Vairagya. While Viveka gives the seeker the wisdom of discrimination to understand the difference between real and the unreal, Atmavastu and Anatmavastu, the second virtue, Vairagya, is the execution part of it. If Viveka is theory, Vairagya is practicals. Dispassion or Vairagya arises from discrimination. Dispassion purifies mind and makes one capable of subtler discrimination. Hence, dispassion increases discrimination and vice versa. Viveka and Vairagya are two wings on which the seeker flies towards the truth. Vairagya is a compound word joining vai meaning to dry, to be dried, raga meaning color, passion, feeling, emotion, interest, etc. This sense of drying up of passions gives Vairagya. Vairagya, varieties of Vairagya. There are two types. Karana Vairagya. Vairagya born out of temporary pains or situations like when a woman delivers a baby, when a person attends cremation, when a person is unable to possess objects. They are Pasava Vairagya, Smashana Vairagya, and Abhava Vairagya. They are of no use. Viveka Purvaka Vairagya is the one born out of deep Viveka, will help spiritual advancement. Such a person will not have downfall. Here we are discussing only Viveka Purvaka Vairagya. What Vairagya means? Dispassion, detachment, renunciation. It's a desire and ability to give up all transitory enjoyments in general and all pains and pleasures in particular. As ascetic who has subdued all passions and desires is called Vairagika or Viragi. What Vairagya does not mean: abandoning social duties and responsibilities of life, detachment from work, a life in solitary caves of Himalayas or in crematorium, living on neem leaves, cow's urine, cow's dung, wearing matted hair and having a kamandal made of coconut shell or fence gourd in hand, shaving of head and throwing off clothes. What Vairagya is? How do you define Vairagya? Vairagya is a mental detachment from all connections in the world. A man may live in his world and discharge all the duties of his order and stage of life with perfect detachment. He may have family and children and at the same time may have perfect detachment. He may do spiritual sadhana. He is a hero indeed. Vairagya is a passion and dispassion. A person with dispassion is fearless as he doesn't depend upon anything for his joy. He is peaceful, cheerful, and contented, irrespective of presence or absence of objects of enjoyment. Whereas the one with passion is always tense, stressed, craving for more and more. He is always filled with fear of losing his possession or a failure to get his wants. The person with passion lives for his own pleasure, while the dispassionate one truly loves and serves others. Here, dispassion represents Vairagya. Vairagya and Sannyasa. Very often, Vairagya is mistaken for Sannyasa or renunciation, although the latter follows the former in the spiritual evolution. A sannyasi without Vairagya may slip and fail miserably, but a Viragi who has not taken a sannyasa formally may attain Samadhi. Rajarshi Janaka is the ideal example of a true sannyasi despite being a king and grihastha. Importance of Vairagya in spiritual path. The importance of Vairagya cannot be more emphasized than Bhartrihari's Vairagya Shatakam. Maharshi Valmiki's Yoga Vasistha and Ashtavakra Gita written by sage Ashtavakra also deal with the same subject. But the prominence Lord Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita is ultimate. He tells Arjuna, Asamshayam Mahabaho Manodur Nigraham Chalam Abhyasena to Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Gruhyate. No doubt, it's very difficult to control the ever-wavering mind, but is possible by practice and Vairagya. Virtue of Vairagya is extolled and advocated by a number of other religions, including Jainism and Buddhism. Vairagya is one of the supreme ideals of Jainism. It is one amongst 5 vows Jain Munis observe. It is also the central concept of Zen Buddhist philosophy. Let me conclude with the beautiful advice of Lebanese poet and philosopher Khalil Gibran gives in his poetry The Prophet with reference to detachment and relationship. Let there be spaces in your togetherness and let the winds of heaven dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Sing and dance together, but let each one be alone. Stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of a temple stand apart, and the oak and cypress grow not in each other's shadow. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Venkatesh, for a very nice explanation on the topic of Vairagya. You gave a nice example of King Janaka. King Janaka is one who is a ruler. He is a grihastha, and yet he is completely detached. So Vairagya is really mental, and it is possible to be in the world and to have Vairagya. We come to the next discipline. We finished 3 of them. This is the last of the qualifications. This qualification talks about the 6-fold types of disciplines that is involved for a spiritual seeker. To explain about it will be Dr. Sundar. Dr. Sundar is a plastic surgeon working in St. John's Medical College. And as you will see from his explanation, committed also to the understanding and to propagation of his understanding on Vedanta. Dr. Sundar, please.
Good evening, everybody. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Our scriptures say that there is eternal, everlasting happiness available to us. And more importantly, they reveal a secret that such eternal, everlasting happiness is actually within me. So if it is there, why am I not able to dip into that happiness and reap that benefit and be ever happy? So the scriptures further tell us that this happiness is seemingly covered by three coverings, which are called as Mala, Vikshepa, and Avaranam. So the grossest cover is called as Mala. And this Mala is impurities in the mind, which one removes through Karma Yoga. The second, little more subtler covering is that of Vikshepaha, which is restlessness, extrovertedness. And this is removed through the sadhana of Upasana Yoga. And the subtlest covering, the innermost covering, the most difficult one to remove is called as Ajnanam or Avaranam, which is removed through the sadhana of Jnana Yoga. So we will see that spiritual journey involves a travel where I discover that happiness through a process of uncovering of these layers one by one. So as we see in this slide, we can classify the spiritual journey into two steps. In the first step, through Karma Upasana Yoga, I get Mala Nivritti, Vikshepa Nivritti. This is dealt with in the Veda Purva Bhaga, in the religious portions of the Veda. With this, I am qualified to take the second step, which is the actual spiritual journey. This comprises of Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam, which are part of Jnana Yoga. And this is covered in the Veda Anta Bhaga, or the Upanishadic portion or the philosophical portion of the Vedas. Through this two steps, one will eventually culminate in complete freedom, eternal happiness, a stage which is called as Jivan Mukti. Let us now in the next slide focus on the first step. So as I mentioned, in the first step, we get the prerequisite qualifications to take up Jnana Yoga. So another terminology for this prerequisite qualifications is this term Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti, which is the theme for today. So as we can see from the word Chatustaya, this involves fourfold sadhanas. So the threefold sadhana, Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutvam, have been covered already. So through these sadhanas, through the sadhana of Karma Yoga, I am able to get Mala Vikshepa, Mala Nivritti. Now we come to the fourth such component of this qualification, which goes by the term Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. So through Upasana Yoga, I will get Vikshepa Nivritti. So with all these four together, I become a Sadhana Chatustaya Sampanna, a qualified student, an Adhikari, where I can now take up the journey of Jnana Yoga. If we have these four qualifications, then this spiritual journey is meaningful. If we don't have these fourfold qualifications, I might still study Vedanta, I might still study Upanishads, but although I may be a scholar, I may be a PhD in it, it will not cause an inner transformation for me. It will not yield that ultimate happiness that we were discussing. In Swami Param's word, emotional beggarliness will still continue. However great I may be a scholar in Vedanta, if these fourfold qualifications are not there. That is the importance of Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti. I will now come to the topic which is allotted to me, which is the fourth component of this Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti, which goes by the term Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. So this fourth component in itself includes sixfold disciplines. So these are Sama, Dhamma, Uparama, Titiksha, Shraddha, and Samadhana. These are called as disciplines because I need this to manage myself well. Before I manage my household, at a larger scale, before I manage a company, even larger scale, before I manage a nation, can I manage myself? That is the moot question. Let us go to the next slide, which deals with the first such qualification, which is Sama. In the text Tattva Bodha, the definition for this word is Mano Nigraha. So Sama is mastery of my mind. Am I able to channelize the energy in my mind towards what is relevant spiritually? The example given is that of the energy in a river being channelized for useful purposes through a dam. Mano Nigraha is not suppression of the mind. One should clearly understand, because of the force of somebody elder or because my guru is saying, I cannot suppress or channelize my mind. It is eventually bound to explode. So it is born out of mastery. So it means it is born out of maturity. It is born out of understanding the futility of not doing otherwise, through the verse Timappa sir told about Pariksha Lokan Karma Chitan. We now go to the next discipline, which is Damaha. So the definition in Tattva Bodha is Bahyendriya Nigraha. We can imagine the Ratha Kalpana, the famous picturization of Bhagavad Gita, which you would have seen. So there are the horses there, which are the sense organs, and these horses are reined in by reins, which is actually the mind. So the world gate crashes through our senses into me. So if I have to pursue spirituality, I need to have mastery over the senses. So this is what is referred by the word Damaha. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, see only what is proper, hear only what is proper. So again, like the previous term, this is not about suppression, but this is born out of maturity, again through the process of Pariksha Lokan Karma Chitan, that this is what is relevant to me. So this is sensory mastery. This is not suppression. We go to the next term, which is Uparama. So Uparama is, I should be able to withdraw myself physically, emotionally, so that I can channelize my time and energy on spirituality. The opposite of this is extrovertedness. The problem with extrovertedness is I end up a lot of time in pursuit of Artha Kama, and this robs me of valuable spiritual time. So Maharishi Ramana says, Kriti Mahodado Patana Karanam. So karma he compares to an ocean. So if I am always in Artha Kama, then I will not have time for spiritual pursuits. So in the Kathopanishad, this is also being said to turn my direction from prayas to shreyas. Yeah, so the definition for Uparama in Tattva Bodha is Swadharma Anushtanam. So if I have to give up Artha Kama, does it mean that I drop all my karmas? So that is what is addressed by this definition, Swadharma Anushtanam. So this defines that I should redirect my life so that I pursue Nitya Naimitya karmas. So these are Nishkama karmas. These are selfless karmas, like the Panchamaha Yajnas, which I am supposed to do every day. Also occasionally the Naimitya karmas. And I should reduce the Kamya karmas, which are selfish karmas, Prayashchitta karmas, which are karmas which I might do to overcome certain past sin, and also Nishiddha karmas, which should be avoided, which are harmful to others. So this redirection from unfavorable to favorable karmas thus is Uparama. We go to the next term, which is Titiksha. So Titiksha is defined in Tattva Bodha as Sukha, Sitoshna Sukha Dukkhadi Sahishnutvam. So sir already quoted the verse Matras Parshastu Kaunteya Sitoshna Sukha Dukkadha Agamo Paino Anityaha Titiksha Bhava. To Arjuna, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So Titiksha is that ability in me to face the pairs of opposites which hit me as I go through my life. If I don't have Titiksha, I then end up a lot of time in unnecessary emotional turmoil. So Titiksha gives me the ability to withstand these adversities which hit me. So it is the psychological immunity or the inner strength which doesn't affect my samatvam so much. Next slide, sir. So we see Swami Param beautifully describes when adversities hit us, we first try remedial measures, which he calls a solution approach. Often I am unable to find a remedy. At that time, there is a tendency to become angry, that he calls it as an explosion approach. Often if there are elders or seniors, I cannot get angry also. Then I silently suffer inside me, which we can call as an implosion approach. Now the scriptures says that there is a standard described in the scriptures, which is titiksha, which is not to go through these spiritually downfall approaches, but rather to increase your threshold so that we can have at the physical level endurance and at the mental level forbearance or fortitude. So such mental toughness is called titiksha. With this, we go to the fifth discipline, which is Shraddha. So Tattvabodha defines Shraddha as Guru Vedanta Vakya Dishu Vishwasaha. So we can look at it this way. If my eyes report a particular color as red, I accept it as a fact. I do not use any other sense to verify whether what my eye is saying is correct. So scriptures say, give Guru's words as well as the scripture the position of a sense organ. That means what they say, you accept it without using the other senses to question. But are we saying to blindly believe? No. What is implied here is that I need to have an open-minded approach. I should not have a critical-minded approach. I should not have a proofreader's approach to find fault with the scriptures. As time goes by, things become clearer. I can also take the help of a guru, and then all doubts are laid clear. So this humility is what is called Shraddha. Intellectual arrogance, Swami Param says, is a big obstacle in scriptural studies. With this, we move to the sixth and the final discipline, which is called as Samadhana. So Samadhana is defined in Tattvabodha as Chitta Ekagrata. So Chitta refers to mind. Ekagrata means the ability to make the mind single pointed towards the job which is at hand. So this can be looked up as a short-term measure as well as a long-term measure. In the short term, am I able to focus on the job at hand without any distraction? Can I give my 100% to the job which is at my hand? So in this sense, it is similar to mindfulness or the Zen meditation, which is there in Buddhism. However, Samadhana also refers to a long-term, next slide, sir, a long-term approach where I am very clear about the spiritual pursuit in the back of my mind. So we see this verse, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hyantyasya buddhayo avyavasainam. So this is a clear spiritual purpose, a spiritual goal, which is always there in the back of my mind. So this can be compared to a train journey, a long train journey. I may get down at various stations, I may eat various things, but I never forget to get back onto the train. It never happens that I miss my train. So Samadhana is such focusing capacity. In conclusion, through Karma Yoga, through Viveka Vairagya Mumukshutvam, I get a calm mind or Samatvam. Through Upasana Yoga, through Samadhi Shatka Sampatti, I develop an ability to withdraw my mind at will for spiritual pursuits. With all this, I am now a Sadhana Chatustaya Sampanna, fully armed, fully qualified to take up my journey of Jnana Yoga, which culminates in Jivan Mukti. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sundar. You not only spoke very clearly about all aspects of Shama Adi Shakta Sampatti, the 6 disciplines important for a spiritual pursuit. You also summarized the whole spiritual journey on how to attain Jnana Yogyata, about Jnanam, and all the spiritual qualifications required. In a way, we have seen the whole spectrum of today's topic. We will, before I conclude, we will study one more mantra. This mantra is a very popular mantra said to be chanted before any meal, and that is called Annapurne Sadapurne. To explain this mantra, I'll request Mrs. Rama Gopal Krishna to explain this. She is a great teacher of Vedanta, very popular, sought-out teacher, very fluent in Kannada, but for us, she will explain this in English. She is currently located in the United States in San Jose. Madam Rama, can you please go ahead?
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hindu tradition has one ultimate aim, achieving self-realization. Therefore, even simple events in everyday life calls for remembering the higher consciousness. One common event everybody experiences is the act of eating food to nourish the body. Many of us chant shlokas and offer food to God before eating. One such shloka is from Annapurnashtakam of Sri Adi Shankaracharya. Let me explain the meaning of the word Annapurna. The word Annapurna has two parts, Annam meaning food or grain, Purna meaning who is full and complete. Annapurna refers to completeness with food for body and mind. She is called Annada. She is called Vishwashaktihi, the strength of Shiva. Annam also means wealth or Aishwaryam. Her wealth is manifested externally as seasons and internally as nourishment and prana of the body. She grants the wealth of Purnatvam through Gnanam and Vairagyam to the Jivas. So she is called Bhuvaneshwari. She is beyond Maya and is called Mayatita. She is Vishwamata, the creator of the universe, using Sattva Rajas Tamo Guna present in Maya. Description of Annapurna. Agamas describe her as a youthful goddess with a red complexion. She has 3 eyes and her face is round like a full moon. She is portrayed as having 2 or 4 arms with a golden vessel and a golden ladle. The other hands have Abhaya and Varada Mudra. In other depictions, she has Akshamala and scriptures. With this background, let us see the meaning of the shloka. Annapurne Sadapurne Shankara Pranavallabhe Jnana Vairagya Siddhyartham Bhikshan Dehi Cha Parvati. The word meaning. Annapurne, O Mother Annapurna, Sadapurne, you are always a constant source of happiness and completeness. Shankara Pranavallabhe, the beloved of Shankara, Parvati Cha. O Parvati, the daughter of Himalayas. Jnana Vairagya Siddhyartham, to awaken within me spiritual knowledge and freedom from worldly desires, Bhikshan Dehi, please grant me the alms of your grace to attain Moksha, the Paramapurushartha. A story about Annapurna says, during their casual conversation, Shiva told Parvati, the material world, including food, is an illusion or Maya. The Divine Mother, who is worshipped as the manifestation of all the material things, was upset. To demonstrate the importance of her manifestation, she disappeared from the world. Time stood still and the earth became barren without seasons. All beings suffered from the pangs of hunger. Seeing the suffering of her own creation, out of compassion, she reappeared in Kashi and distributed food to everyone. Hearing about, next slide, sir. Hearing about her return, Shiva met her and begged for alms. She smiled and fed him. Since then, she is worshipped as Annapurna, the source of nourishment for all the living beings in the world. Aspects of food. One of the scriptures explain the dissipation of the food we eat as follows. The gross content is excreted as body waste. The subtle part is converted into flesh and blood. The subtlest part forms the mind and intellect. The feelings while obtaining and preparing the food is reflected subtly in the mind and intellect. Hence the saying, you are what you eat. So one has to chant this shloka and offer the food to the goddess before consuming it every time. This way, one can attain Purnatvam and be in a state of positivity and bliss. This shloka explains how to get blessings to obtain Vairagyam as explained by Mr. Prasad. So let us all pray for Mata Annapurna's constant blessing. Hari Om. Thank you, sir. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Rama, for explaining this beautiful poem. It is recommended every time before we have food to be able to chant this prayer, where you are not only praising Lord Goddess Annapurneshwari, you are asking for Jnanam Vairagya Siddhyartha. Siddhyartham means that wealth of Jnanam and Vairagyam, all these terms which were explained today. With that, we come to the final part. Now, we learned about all these qualifications. I know these qualifications are required, but the teaching so far has not told us how do I acquire these qualifications. It is said, we have previous sadhanas that karma yoga, that if you do karma yoga over a period of time, you will get the first three qualifications of viveka, vairagya, and mumukshutvam. And through times of prayer, upasana, it will give you the discipline of shama, adi, shakta, sampatti. In addition, Swami Param emphasizes very much on the importance of certain values. And these values have come in Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga as Yama and Niyama. I will quickly run through these. The 5 Yamas are Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteyam, Brahmacharyam, Aparigraha. The 5 Niyamas are Saucham, Santosham, Tapaha, Swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhanam. A little detail about what are these yamas. Yamas, number 1, ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence in thought, word, and deed. Satyam means to be truthful in all our activities. Asteyam is non-stealing, but which literally means no unfair transactions wherein I do not possess anything which is not due to me. It is due to someone else, I need to give it to that person. Brahmacharya means chastity or proper attitude towards sexuality, and aparigraha means to reduce our essentials to the basic requirement. Yama does not mean restriction, but it means to channelize our energies in like the banks of the river towards our goal. Then there are the 5 niyamas, the 5 practices that we need to do regularly. They are called Sauchyam, Santosham, which is contentment. Tapaha means moderation. Swadhyaya means scriptural study. And Ishvara Pranidhanam means surrender to the Lord. Niyama, these fixed observances bring about a life of discipline, a life of regularity. If this is not there, we would be overcome by we could become a slave of our instincts or laziness. Ultimately, we need to ensure that we do our Pancha Maha Yajnas every day. In conclusion, I would like to draw one particular mantra from the Mundaka Upanishad, which goes like this. Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmana, which means, have you examined your life? Take some time to examine what is that I have really acquired in my life. Socrates says, if you have not taken time to examine your life, you have not lived a full life. And if you have examined your life, you will see what is that I have really achieved. You have achieved, somebody has very rightly said, if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. I have been getting more and more of the same thing, maybe good, but then does it bring you purnatvam? Does it give you a sense of fulfillment? When you see it does not bring, then you understand the meaning of the word nirvedyam. Nirvedyam is a sort of internal frustration or vairagyam and an understanding that nasti akrita kritena. That means through finite activity, I will never be able to attain to the infinite. That is when I turn to spirituality. That is when I turn to a guru who is able to give me this. Tat Vijnartam sa gurumeva abhigachet samit panihi shrotriya brahmanishta. Then I make a decision that if I want to get full accomplishment in my life, a purnatman in my life, unlimited peace, security, and happiness, I have to change my direction towards the world of spirituality. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhak Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Venkatesh, can you conclude?
Thank you, Dr. Hegde, sir, and all speakers for the beautiful presentations. I'm sure you have enjoyed all the presentations. Friends, what happens here in class is Shravanam. This should invariably be followed by Mananam and Nididhyasanam. Kindly give your time and attention to read the study material and to listen the recordings to make a clear understanding of topics covered. Thank you all for your keenness to attend these classes and engage yourselves in study of most important and auspicious subject of Vedanta. Chat options have been enabled that will continue to be there for another 15 minutes. Please take your time and type your questions. Please make your use of it and type questions, all the questions next session. Hope all of you have received the study materials and YouTube links to the recordings pertaining to previous classes. You will continue to get them after each class. For now, good night to many of you and wishing all others a very good day. Looking forward to meet you next Friday, same time. Please log in before 6:45 p.m. local time. Thank you once again. Hari Om.